Hey friends, welcome to my channel, aHauntMess, where we discuss all things spooky, paranormal, creepy, dark, mysterious, inexplainable. If that sounds like your cup of tea, you found yourself in the right place. My name is Lauren Alina, and I'm so incredibly happy and thankful that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about the Appalachian Trail. Appalachia, not sure how to pronounce it, but Appalachian is also said to be how you pronounce it. Needless to say, we'll be talking about stories regarding that area. You guys might know if you have TikTok, other forms of social media, that this has been blowing up and going viral. People's experiences of living in that area. As you know, the Appalachian Trail and the mountains span over several states, so let's kind of learn about that. But before we get into it, make sure to grab yourself a yummy snack, a really good drink. Today we are drinking zero sugar Gold Peak tea. Honestly, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Let's get into it. My friends, the Appalachian Trail is actually the world's longest hiking trail, spanning over 2,100 miles. In 1937, the trail was completed, and it is now said to be utilized by over 3 million visitors annually. That is insane. The trail starts in Georgia, then proceeds through North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and good old Maine. Lobster rolls, chef's kiss. The trail passes through 6 national parks and 8 of our national forests. On average, we're not talking Olympic level hikers here, we're talking normal people. It could take someone approximately 5 to 7-ish months to hike the entire trail. So, knowing a little bit I know about recreational hiking, that's insane. We love a sporty spice, and hopefully that helps paint the picture of just how vast the Appalachian Trail is. Appalachian, y'all, I don't know how to say it. The Appalachian Mountains are said to have a supernatural and almost ominous landscape, where the history, coupled with people's ghostly encounters, construct a ground where unexplainable phenomena occur. Here's some goosey-inducing stories I found on the internet told by real people with real encounters of the Appalachian Trails. It is said there's historical trauma here, such as mining town accidents, battlefields, Native American displacement sites, that's sad, and isolated mountain communities. So, without further ado, here's some goosey-inducing stories. That would be hard to say 5 times fast. We weren't on the trail, but in Hanover, New Hampshire, staying at a cute little motel due to the absolutely dreadful weather. We made sure to close and latch the 2 windows so our stuff wouldn't get soaked in the downpour. In the middle of the night, I wake up to see that the window had been opened and saw an outline of a figure sticking their head into our room. I sat up in bed immediately, flipped on the light, and the figure was gone. Quickly, I woke my friend up. Both of us became uneasy. We were on the 2nd floor. There was no access to the window from outside. My dog doesn't even like that one. The next story takes place at the Wapiti Shelter, which is located in Giles County, Virginia, on the Appalachian Trail. This was the location a double homicide took place. Back in 1981, 2 27-year-old social workers, Robert Mountford Jr. and Laura Ramsey, were senselessly murdered by Randall Lee Smith. There's some misinformation floating around. They have rebuilt the shelter in 1981. However, the new shelter is where they were murdered. Myself and 4 other friends set up camp at that shelter. When we're winding down, the feeling of heaviness happens, and we all can almost feel it. I laid there not able to fall asleep, and at some point I do, but I'm awoken by the sound of walking outside my tent. I unzip the top about 8 inches and peer outside. I was fully expecting to see a deer, or worse, perhaps a bear. But to my horror, I see a tall, thin figure. Eyes flickered as it looked directly at me before disappearing behind the trees. I felt frozen, unable to run to the next set of tents where my best friends were sleeping. I remember counting to 3 in my head, trying to get the courage to run, when suddenly, I hear the branches above creaking as if whatever just disappeared was now climbing just feet above our tents. I quickly zip the tent back up and retreat to the safety of my sleeping bag. I laid awake for which felt like hours. Eventually, I must have fell asleep because the sun peeked through my tent. None of our food bags were touched. Nothing was disturbed. I didn't tell anyone about it, but I'm never going back. The next story is pretty short. It says, one night, my girlfriend and I were camping in West Virginia when we hear the sound of a person whistling somewhere in the distance. Slowly, the whistling grew louder as it grew closer. I looked around in the distance, trying to see in the dark, but didn't see anyone. The whistling then sounded only feet away before passing us and heading directly into the woods. I never heard any leaves crunching or saw anyone. Later that night, I heard someone whisper my name, Sam. My girlfriend swore it wasn't her. We're headed back to town in the morning. 2 more stories, guys. Last night, I was home alone and heard footsteps pacing back and forth on my front porch. I quickly shut the curtains as tightly as possible. I double-checked the locks, then quickly made my way back to my bedroom and made sure to lock the door. The footsteps continued though, and I could hear them from my room on the 2nd floor. It was 3 a.m. and they kept going, just pacing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I felt an incredibly strong pull to look outside the window, down to the front yard, but I had to stop myself. I called my boyfriend hoping to distract myself, but the source of the noise grew louder and faster, seemingly growing angrier. I heard a loud growl, and for a second, thought about shrugging this off as being a wild animal. But what happened next changed my mind. My boyfriend said he heard static, unable to really tell what I was saying, and then the call dropped. The sound of my dad snoring in the next room over made me feel safe, and eventually I did fall asleep. The next morning, my neighbor called our house. My mom answered and immediately began yelling at me for being outside at 3 a.m. The neighbor saw me pacing back and forth before getting down on all fours and leaping off the porch towards our backyard. I'm sorry, but if somebody on all fours, if I was the neighbor, I would have threw up. That's messed up. We made it to the last one. I'm a parent to 2 little girls, and if you're a parent, you know the sounds of your kids playing and running down the hallway. Well, one day, I was home alone, and I went to lay down because I was completely exhausted. And then I heard directly in my ear, Mommy, and even felt the air in my ear. I jolted straight up and heard the little thump, 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 thump down the hallway. Confused for a second, until I realized I was home alone. Both of my kids were at school. I didn't see a thing, but the voice sounded just like my daughter's. At the time, my little girl would tell me about her friend she would always play with. Now it's been 5 years since, and my daughter doesn't talk about her friend anymore. I also don't hear any voices or walking anymore either. I will stand firm on the fact that I think children can hear and see things. Also, that gives me vibes of like mimics or SWs, but that could be a story for another time. All right, my friends, that is it. It was a shorter video, but nonetheless, I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you liked it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you feel compelled to do so. If you have any spooky stories you'd be willing to share, you can head over to my Instagram or drop a comment down below. I also have a Spotify that's linked in our profile too. But other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, stay safe, and until next time, bye.